Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Future Hacker. I'm your host, Maria Taiji, and today we're talking to Vidur Mahajan. Dr. Vidur runs CARING, the Center for Advanced Research on Imaging, Neuroscience and Genomics, which works with more than 30 research groups across the world and aims to bring cutting-edge products in the artificial intelligence space into clinical practice through its platform. He also is responsible for running Mahajan Imaging, one of India's leading medical imaging providers, and CARINGdx, an advanced molecular diagnosis lab. Hello, Dr. Vidur. It's great to have you with us today. How are you doing?
Good. And Maria, it's an honor to be here with you. I think the work that you do is super cool and interesting. So very, very excited about being here.
Thank you so much. We're also super excited as we are covering this really, really cool topic and super important. But let's begin as usual with your background. As any Future Hacker guest, you have a great story. You told me that your family owns the oldest radiology service in India, but your thirst for knowledge of new technologies for behavior science and neuroscience moved you to travel abroad. So please tell us about your journey.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Maria. And you make it sound so much nicer than what it actually is. So thanks for that. So my family runs, it's not the oldest, but yeah, one of the oldest medical imaging service companies in India. I went to medical school in Mumbai. So while I originally hail from New Delhi, I went to Mumbai for medical school and after med school decided to switch over to the management side of things. But I was always very interested in technology, very interested in neuroscience, especially the behavioral aspects of neuroscience, and got involved in a lot of research projects while, also building imaging centers on the side, which, eventually took me to University of Pennsylvania, where I went for an MBA, because I realized that, I had so many diverse interests that the only educational program that kind of fit in was a business degree. So I went to the US, went to UPenn, the Wharton School for an MBA, spent 2 amazing years there. And during that time, this was 2014 to 2016. And during that time was when, deep learning started getting applied to medical imaging. So, and one of the first companies was Zebra Medical. And, I had the privilege of visiting their office back in the day. And my mind was blown, right? I instantly realized that there is a new wave of innovation and technology that's coming into radiology, and I have to be part of it. So after the MBA, I came back to India and, started partnering with as many AI startups or big companies building AI, like anybody doing AI in medical imaging, we were trying to partner with them. And in doing that, we put together a team comprising of myself, a radiologist, a neuroscientist, and a couple of engineers, trying to help these companies build better products faster than what they could alone. That's how CARING started. We formalized it. We named it in January of 2018. Yeah, and it's an acronym, as you said, Center for Advanced Research in Imaging, Neuroscience and Genomics. And I think that imaging and genomics are certainly going to be 2 pillars of the future. And the neuroscience layer is actually the AI layer that will connect these two. So that's my story in a nutshell. Like, I have a strange kind of background in that sense.
Come on, I'm pretty sure people will agree that it's pretty cool. And, Dr. Vidur, when you're talking about AI for medical imaging, what you told me that is each part of the human body is a whole different world, right? So the startups trying to address that have very specific solutions to those, each different part of the body. So I imagine that on the hospital side, this might be a nightmare, as you basically need to put together this huge number of vendor relationships and integrations and contracts and training and testing. It must be crazy, right? So you saw this pain and you turned into an opportunity of bringing those vendors together in your own platform. And this sounds super complex to me for something to be done. Could you just share with us how did this go and how is it going?
It is quite interesting and quite difficult as we embark on this journey. So essentially, you're absolutely right? Every human body part, like if you think of it, the number of AI algorithms that may be required to emulate or replicate the work that a radiologist does is nearly infinite, because for every body part you have virtually unlimited number of diseases that can be present, and those diseases can be present in a virtually unlimited number of formats. And then if you add on top of that a layer of the different types of cameras that we use, MRI scanners, CT scanners, ultrasound, X-ray, mammography, etc., we are looking at a steady state of at least 100 to 200 algorithms across the human body being used in day-to-day practice. As that happens, and as different companies build out niche products, it is, as you rightly said, going to be impossible for a hospital to have 100 relationships with 100 different companies, one for each body part and then one for each disease within each body part. So how is a hospital going to manage that, right? And it's a problem that will arise, we feel, in a couple of years as the ecosystem develops. But we started working on it again about 2 years ago, where we started going out there and partnering with a lot of these AI companies and telling them that you are much better to be a part of a bouquet of services rather than as a standalone service. And people were instantly drawn to it, right? On both sides, on the hospital side as well, because, they simply realized that, okay, we can get Carpal, which is the name of our platform, the CARINGdx platform, Carpal. So hospitals can integrate with Carpal as a single point integration. And on the other hand, AI companies get the opportunity to deploy their algorithms across our network. It's working out really well. But that said, there are today no standards and I mean technological standards. There are no technological standards for deployment of AI in hospitals. And what that means is that every company has their own different format in which they generate outputs or in which they generate the AI results. And that means that at our end on Carpal, we need to have different pipelines for different companies. So if we work with 15 different companies, there might be 15 different integrations that we have to do. But then the value we're providing is that the hospital doesn't need to do those many integrations. So it is super complex, and we've had to build more features. Now we have features getting built that even I don't know of. But it's a fun journey. Everyone who sees our platform feels that it's the first time they're seeing something like that. So that kind of pushes us on. But yeah, it's been super fun.
And lack of standards is a problem in basically any industry, right? We've been hearing that a lot when it comes to new technologies, making it more scalable and more used anywhere is honestly a common problem when it comes to anything new, but something that it probably will have to be addressed somehow at some point, right? But so trying to dig a little deeper in the platform. So basically it's a two-way marketplace. You have the tech provider to the hospitals, and then the data that comes back to the system. So my question is, and I usually ask this question to any guest that is working on the field of data gathering. Who owns it? Who owns the data? One big issue in the development of any AI and machine learning system is exactly having a good enough amount of data to feed them. So how is it working on the medical imaging sector? Are the players joining forces and sharing information? One of the biggest issues is companies consider themselves competitors. So it's a challenge to get them to be sharing the data needed on the same time to get the system more intelligence. On the same time, you have the data privacy issue. So how is it going?
Maria, I think this is a brilliant question, and there is no correct answer to this, right? Who owns the data? So I'll tell you a few facts, right? Fact number one is that patients own their data, because it is literally like you have clicked my photograph and I own my data. Hospitals, healthcare providers are custodians of patients' data because, they are supposed to be the ones who store patient data. And subsequent to that, there is another legal standing that says that once you remove the patient from the data, so for example, if you have my X-ray, but you remove any link to me from that X-ray, so what that means is, like, even if you get that X-ray, you'll never be able to find out whose X-ray that is, then it simply remains a data point, right? So, and this is basically the legal standing on which a lot of AI is today being developed, including open sourcing of data. Like, Stanford, for example, has singularly open sourced, I think, more than 1 million different type of medical imaging scans based on this premise, right? That once you strip away the patient from the medical image, it just remains data. It doesn't remain patient data anymore. On your question about companies sharing data with each other, you are absolutely right. Most AI companies, think of each other as competition, which is where a platform like ours becomes important. Because frankly, if you think of it, right, it's like, let's say I'm a hospital and I'm using an AI algorithm to read, head CT scans, right? CT scans of the head. And there's a 99% accuracy rate for my algorithm, right? Making it very simple. So that means out of every 100 scans that are read by the algorithm, there is one mistake. Now, it is absolutely critical for the developer of that algorithm to know what that one mistake is, right? Which is why a platform like ours, which is why communication between the hospital and the AI developer in terms of this data exchange becomes important. Because unless and until the AI system improves based on its past mistakes, there's really going to be no advantage to running AI so much. So I'm not sure, if that's clear enough, but essentially the idea is that you need to, it's like pharmacovigilance, right? Or like you see right now with the entire world is getting COVID vaccines. But if we stop reporting the side effects of those vaccines, how do we even know how the vaccine is doing? How do we even know it's safe? So similarly with AI, there will have to be a data sharing mechanism, which frankly we are working on, where a hospital is able to report an error back to the company, and the company is able to, improve on the AI that they've built, and then subsequently push back a newer version of their software so that that same mistake is not made again. So yeah, that's kind of the two-way element to the entire platform.
So taking into account all the challenge of the collaboration between parties and the credibility and the reliability and the quality of the imaging and everything that is involved, do you think that it would make sense and it would be feasible to use blockchain technology for medical imaging? Would it be an ally for that?
So honestly, Maria, I think blockchain per se is in its maybe nascency right now to be applied in a meaningful way to healthcare. Like, I know there are companies that are trying to apply blockchain to medical records and all, but broad, and it's not an area of my expertise by far, but broad consensus amongst the community is that you could just use conventional databases and pull off the same application that people are trying to use blockchain for. So I don't see it right now playing a major role. Also for medical imaging specifically, data sizes are really, really big. So I'm not sure how that plays into the blockchain story. But there is a case to be made for decentralized computation, right? Which essentially means that there will be a single technology platform, but it may not be entirely on the cloud, and instead it may actually be in say 5,000 hospitals across the world. So 5,000 hospitals may have 5,000 servers all talking to one another through the cloud and sharing all of this data, sharing the analytics, sharing real-time insights. But whether or not that will happen using blockchain specifically, as of now, it doesn't seem so. But certainly the case for decentralized compute and also federated learning, right? That's a big thing right now. We're seeing companies come up that are focused exclusively on healthcare federated learning. And federated learning is essentially not having to take out data from an hospital to make an AI algorithm off of that data. So if I want to make an AI algorithm using, oversimplifying, but let's say 5,000 X-rays from 5 different hospitals, so that means 1,000 X-rays from each hospital, and I want to make an AI algorithm, one way is I can physically pull out those 1,000 X-rays from each hospital and put it all in one computer and then make an AI algorithm on that one computer. But the other approach, which is the federated approach, is that you can literally train 5 different models in those 5 different hospitals and then combine those models to make one AI model. So certainly decentralized compute is definitely here to stay, and given the privacy concerns and security concerns, it's the preferred mode of doing things right now. But blockchain specifically, I really don't know as of now what the future would be.
Got it. Thank you so much, Vidur. Okay, everybody, so we are getting to the end of the episode 1, but stay tuned. We still have a lot to discuss with Dr. Vidur. So we are ending this episode. Stay there as we are soon beginning the second one.
Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.